Yeah, this is a Pianki calling from the Midwest. How you tonight?
Peace. Greetings, brother. You said Pianki?
Yes, sir.
Greetings, brother.
Yeah, I had asked that question. I guess you had talked about the subject earlier. I was wondering what's the status on the payout, and what can people like ourselves do in order to speed things up or help this come to fruition.
Are you talking about the big payout from the class action case?
Yes, sir.
Well, being that we are looking for the money from the government, that's who we need to be screaming on. But there is not enough, and I used the term outcry earlier in the interview. There are just not enough of us crying out. And let me just once again perspective. Now we're talking about $1.25 billion for the discrimination against black farmers, right? Mm-hmm. Now you have to be mindful now, there's another class action case against the USDA by the Native Americans. And theirs is almost $3.5 billion for non-payment of land leases that they're suing the USDA for. So, we already know just from the history books, what they did to, our Native American family. Mm-hmm. So, the money is there. We know the money is there. But they're playing games. They're shuffling around. They come up with all kinds of reasons. And then when you hear something like, particularly those who are really not in the know, they'll hear that, President Obama signed off on this $1.25 billion, a few months ago, but it still had to go to the Senate and to the House. They had for their approval. And then, they'll drag it along, and then next thing you know, folks are going on vacation. It's just stuff, man. And it'll be a long time before the money is actually paid out. And you have to also, one other thing is that even when the money is paid, now check this out, the $50,000 or whatever it is that the farmer is going to be awarded, that money is taxed. First of all, in this particular case, the pig for two, the lawyers are going to be paid out of the settlement. Right? That's the first thing. Secondly, the monies will be taxed on a state level, and some of it may possibly be taxed on the federal level.
Well, Jewish Holocaust payments are tax-free on the federal level and tax-free on many states. Not only the money that's paid to the ones who actually experience, but also their relatives.
That's right. That's right.
And guess this, even benefactor. Benefactor means that I'm about to die, and I'm going to say I want you, who may not even be related to me, to receive, any future payments. So blacks coming out in mass voting for these Democrats and not putting in demands or stipulations in exchange for their votes, this should be one of the top, priorities, because we're talking about a transfer of wealth. A lot of this other feel-good and emotional stuff that we get involved in, I think is, irrelevant. The whole idea about building wealth, and this is exactly what, black farmers need. And then look at the implications of the fact that a crime was committed, someone was found guilty, and the court said they must pay.
That's right. So now the question remains, what are we going to do?
Well, there should be a massive outcry on it. That march that they had in Washington, D.C. today should have been about black farmers getting paid.
They ain't say nothing about no food down there yesterday.
Yeah.
Right.
It's foolish mess with Glenn Beck. I got another question, too. Have any black farmers looked seriously into doing farming in some of those West African countries where the land is free? You know, I know myself personally of, you know, two areas where in one area they have close to 30,000 acres that was given to slave descendants. This is right next to the Volta River where you have freshwater lake, and in Zimbabwe, you know, they got farms there that, you know, for the taking. So have any black farmers looked into that very seriously? And if I myself was interested in farming, what would be the best way that I could be, I guess you can say, schooled on acquiring the equipment, you know, the tractors or whatever it is that's needed?
There have been several, and I know several farmers personally that have made journeys to a few African countries, and not even on their own dime. You know, they were brought over, taken over, whatever, to, you know, do a feasibility study, if you will. But once again, when you start talking about import-export, we have to have our own folks handling those kinds of things. You talked about the equipment. The equipment is easy to get if you have the money. You know, tractors and you know, if you talk about 30,000 acres, now you're talking about combines. They run upwards of, you know, $300,000 a piece. And forget about the, you know, the technical aspect of it. It's like you still need a workforce. Even with modern day equipment, you still have to have a team of folks that know how to run those machines, although most of it is computerized and whatnot. But when you look at the big picture, at what point am I going to leave my farm, struggling here in the United States, and my own government won't help me, to go over to Africa to grow food with no guarantee that that food is even going to make it back to the United States?
Well, there's some trade. There's been some trade legislation that's been put in place that makes it easy for those produced products to get back in the United States.
Yeah, I'm aware of that, but I'm just talking about like the established farmer. So it becomes like this whole educational process now, where we have young, eager people who are willing to do farming because they're becoming more educated. You know, farm is no longer a dirty four-letter word, if you will. You know, and so there are other areas where, you know, the ones from academia can get into agriculture and make a lot of money because, you know, they have the brain power to assist and answer those very questions that you have. But it's a learning curve too, you know. And then when you look at it, if I may, just give you like a quick example, right? A bushel of wheat weighs about close to 60 pounds. Let's say about 55 to 60 pounds, right? The average farmer today gets about $2, and that's on the high end, per pound, right? $2. So let's just round it up, make the numbers even. So a bushel of wheat weighs 60 pounds. They get $120 for that bushel of wheat, right? That's him, all the work that he did to plant that seed, harvest that crop. The bushel can produce upwards of about 40 loaves of bread. Now, how much do we pay for a loaf of bread in the store? So the farmer's not seeing the added value or the benefits from the added value of that wheat being turned into the bread, the loaf of bread that can sell upwards of, you know, I've seen bread for $4 a loaf. $2 easy. You know, and you multiply that by 40 loaves. So, you know, and that's just like one example. So when somebody looks at farming, they're like, I'm not going to be farming. I'm not making any money. And that's what the actual farmer is saying to this day, but even on a larger scale relative to all other crops. So we do have to continue to educate folks and let them know that there is benefit in this. And if, at the very least, we're allowed to feed ourselves, because, you know, that now takes us into a whole other area of conversation, you know, when we start talking about genetically modified foods and who actually owns the seeds of the world.